everybody, and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. We've got MLS playoffs, we've got conference semifinals, which is really just the quarterfinals. But we're going to talk some scheduling, we're going to talk some TV rights, we're going to talk money. It's going to be a fun show, even with all those topics included. Joining me to discuss all of those things and much, much more is a man who never has a written-out introduction when he hosts this podcast. It's Joe Lowry. Joe, never a written-out introduction, never a plan, always freestyle jazz for you?
Always freestyle jazz. I mean, I think back, what would have been 5 years ago maybe, or 4 years ago when I first probably hosted my first episode of the Total Soccer Show, like did the intro. That's what I mean by hosting, right? Is the one who's generally facilitating the combo. I think I probably did have a tighter script for the beginning, but these days, you know, if it's you and me two-manning, Taylor, if it's me and Jeff two-manning, I'm just winging it, keeping it simple. And you know, I'm not flashy like Ryan. I'm not flashy like you can be. Also, if you have a really thought out intro, I know just play to my strengths, play my role. That's what I'm about.
There we go. Some might say standards are slipping. Others might say standards are so high we don't need no written out introductions. I'm going with that second one. Joining us as well, a man who never forgets to plug the Patreon, unlike myself. It's Jeffrain Morales. Excuse me, it's Jeff Reuter. You both have great names today, I gotta say.
Thank you. It took a long time. There's so many fewer like Jeff puns than Joe puns in the wide world of soccer, unless I just keep going Jeff C, which is maybe that's the commitment to the bit I should have had, but alas.
Yeah, Jeff's tougher, no doubt. Joe, I mean, today I put on our recording software. Viewers can't see this, so you know you just have to take our word for it. My name that I typed into our recording software today is Sergi Joe Busquets. There's just so many for Joes, which I've learned throughout the last however long we've been using this software. It's a new one every day. It's quite simple. Jeff's is much harder, which means, Jeff, my sincere tip of the cap to you and what you've done, because it's not easy what you're doing.
Thank you. If Zlatan Ibrahimovic claims that his best teammate's a 17-year-old homegrown kid, you don't forget that kid even when he leaves the league.
100%.
Simple as that.
100%.
Joe, when you get your doctorate in sports nerdery, will you stop doing creative nicknames and will you just be Dr. Joe Lowry? Is that what we're going to get?
Good question. You know, I was talking with a friend yesterday who was thinking about getting his PhD. As soon as I finished college, I have had zero desire to ever go back for any sort of formal education. Here. I'm done, man. I would love to actually, I think being a professor at some point would be really fun, but the only way I'm getting there is if I get famous enough to get an honourary degree. That's the only chance it's happening, because I ain't going back. I haven't paid for my diploma, man. I ain't going back.
It is well documented that I love Paul F. Tompkins. Wait, you haven't paid for your diploma?
Nope.
You're done. You're out.
Nah,
I got what I needed.
They nickel and dime me one too many nickel and dime. I'm not
Physical media is so 20th century. Guys.
Yeah, I'm not doing it.
It's all digital now.
I don't think I'm a legitimate graduate. If you want me to be totally candid, I don't think I am. I don't think in the system of my institution I am listed as a graduated student, and that's, you know what, that's just how it is.
Hey, you're a graduated student in my heart. Joe, it's well documented I love Paul F. Tompkins, the comedian. He has a bit in his special where he goes through all the bad jobs he's had, where he talks about how much he hated school and how sometimes he'll just be walking around and then pause to be like, oh, I never have to go to school again. Oh,
I do that on probably a monthly basis. Anytime I'm around students, I'm just like, oh, yeah, that sucks for you. Anyway, learning's cool. Keep learning.
Stay in school, kids.
I was going to say.
Yeah, stay in school, definitely.
I think I'm surprised because I do think of Joe. I assume Joe was a I love learning, I love books sort of guy.
I do love learning. I want to learn selfishly the way I want to learn.
The way you want to
learn.
Don't tell me to do my homework. Stop. What's that about, huh? I'll get there.
So how do you feel about being told, Joe, that you now have to cover the sport you cover in a different window? Are you okay?
He set up his own website so that he didn't have to.
Stop.
That's what he thinks about it.
Same.
As I think we shared yesterday, we didn't talk, I suppose, about my desert status making me more open to this as a concept. I think it's obvious that a lot of people are pretty upset about these changes. You only ever hear the whining, though. You only ever hear the complaining. That's the stuff that's magnified the most. I enjoy getting to share, pretty much all of my thoughts yesterday. I am very curious to hear what Jeff thinks about these things.
Because... Oh, we're onto the schedule change. I thought we were still talking about Joe's college career. Sorry.
Oh, no. There's not a lot. There's not a lot to dig into.
You can talk about either one you want. Maybe Joe is truly fascinated what Jeff has to say about Joe's college career.
What's your read,
two paths venture into a forest? Yeah.
Intramural soccer player, high level, low level. Anyway, I think I pretty much emptied my tank yesterday, so I'm curious to hear what Jeff thinks about this and to react to whatever things he has that I have not thought about before.
Yeah, so we went through the basics. We got into all the particulars. I feel like we did a good job of reporting the who, what, where, why, when. But what we didn't have is Jeff's thoughts on the topic writ large. So, Jeff, opening thoughts, and then we'll go from there.
I think so. We've talked about this a few different times over the course of this year, right? We've talked about the schedule change when it was ideated, when it was initially going to be voted on over the summer, when they pushed the vote back from All-Star, that Board of Governors, to a different time. And Joe and I were in a studio talking about it at that point. I think my big first reaction when it was actually voted on, and keep in mind the players, as far as I know, the players haven't actually authorized this. So I also kind of wonder how much MLS is ahead of its skis right now by saying this is happening no matter what, because there are still some negotiations with the CBA that are going to need to happen to manifest it. I'm sure it will happen. There's no way that MLS goes out and says that if there isn't that make weight, but it still is kind of pending. Anyway, I think I expected it to feel bigger. It feels massive, don't get me wrong, but I think I expected to feel more strongly like this is good and this is bad based on their messaging. I was sure that they would have, and they did have, these sort of like talking points that they put out on their website, where the first two of them are about, we will be better at the transfer market, is pretty much like exactly what bullet point 1 and bullet point 2 of why they did this. And then number 3 is stuff like, let's move the playoffs to May because it's comfier and stuff like that. And that's where it's like, okay, you had 2 points that you were going to come up with and you knew it looked like a bad list, and that's fine. It doesn't really hit me as this big seismic, like, the league is going to radically change forever. Because I think that the main impact is the transfer market. And so that is a sense where it will change, but I think it'll look very similar. It'll just look better, right? Like, you're kind of, like, refinishing the table that you already have. It's not a new table. Right. And so, like, I think that's good. I think that that's going to help with continuity. I think it's going to help with some sort of narratives. Yes, that little like sprint season at the start of 27 is going to be ridiculous. It's especially having it like right after the big 26, summer of soccer that everyone's been bandying about for 9 years, like to suddenly then just come in and be like, and here's a 4-month little treat before we go into another off-season period. It's not going to help fans get used to the new cadence whatsoever. So I wonder if there's any way that they can change that. But, yeah, I think right now the big questions are much more granular. And then I started to think about it a little bit more. And I was reading reactions from peers in the media landscape. But then I started to read more like fan point of views. Because I think that sometimes when you get into a position like mine, I'll be completely like, I don't want to get into a position where I'm parroting fan talking points, right? I want to get into a position where I'm watching these things, I'm studying these things, I'm talking to people, whatever, I'm forming my own opinions, and then I'm synthesizing them, putting them out, whether it's on the podcast or currently 5-a-sides or before that, The Athletic, whatever. Like, I'm trying to come at this with a very unique perspective, but I think this is one where you can't ignore the fan perspective. But I'm worried that MLS may have, because I know that they're putting out a lot of statistics about how this is going to be excellent for fans. Majority of our fans, what did they say? Like 92% of our fans are cuckoo for schedule changes or whatever. Which just
that was exactly what they said, word for word, which is crazy.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that was like, are you cuckoo? And you had to like check one of 5 boxes.
Check yes,
and 92% said cuckoo. It's crazy. It's cuckoo, really. But you think about what fans did they poll, and who is going to most notice the change in the games. And it's probably not the fan in Argentina, the fan in England, the fan in France, who it's part of their appetite. They can now be part of their pregame for their domestic leagues that play in the evenings, whatever, depending on time zones, or the afters or whatever. Like, but the in-person, I think, is going to change a lot about how MLS feels as you are in a stadium, as you're watching these broadcasts. Like, I think that there's a chance that this kind of takes away a lot of what made people unique, what made MLS feel unique to people. And now I worry that it's going to become just another soccer league in a way, just in terms of, again, how it feels. And we can get into that a bit. And I wrote about this on 5-a-side as well. But, yeah, it feels like a prioritization over the streaming experience, over the in-person experience.
Yes, 100%. 100% agree. I mean, we were even talking, Taylor, yesterday with Graham and Ryan after we finished recording, and I think this is the moment, Jeff, right along with what you're saying, that MLS is beginning to prioritize national over local, right? And I think every league that hits the mainstream, which I think by the way I mean that term, MLS has not yet, when they're getting pennies compared to what the NFL is getting. I mean, most leagues are, I suppose, but when they're getting really like hey pennies compared to what NFL is getting, there's a moment where they need to figure out how to cross over into some semblance of national relevance. And that's not going to look like the NFL. That's not going to look like the NBA. Could they push closer to the NHL and to the MLB when it comes to eventually getting the sort of national TV revenue that's going to enable MLS owners to feel free, more of them to feel free to spend on their rosters, to attract the kinds of players that aren't just, maybe going to Portugal or Belgium or the Netherlands, which those players would be quite useful, a lot of them in MLS. They're maybe not just the ones going to the Bundesliga, which would be a step up from where MLS is now. But eventually, if we're going to talk about the transfer windows being a real plus now of the MLS schedule change, which I do think it is, if that's going to happen, you can't just go out and sign Bundesliga players and make a claim that, now we're right up there with the best league in the world. I think you have to eventually, this is going to take a long time, but MLS is trying to set itself up to eventually be competing for Champions League players and for Premier League players. I think that has to be the ultimate ambition for MLS, or you have to be really, really good at telling your own stories, right? Ultimately, sports are about stories. And I think having the best players is a great way to tell the story. That is a story in and of itself. But MLS has to figure out how to get there, and they seem to believe, and I think there's real credence to this, Jeff, they seem to believe that in order to get to that point where eventually they're competing for the best players in the world, not for the Liga players, not for the Portuguese League players, for the Premier League players. When they're trying to get there, that they have to do this first. And I ultimately agree with them, even if it means that, like every other major league in the world, in some sense, the local fan gets trod upon, right? That is just how it works. And eventually that settles out, and these owners are going to believe that it's worth it to go after the dollar of someone in Arizona than it is to go after the dollar of someone in St. Paul.
Forgive me if it's obvious, but can you all talk, or Jeff, can you explain why you feel like it takes away from the league feeling unique? Like, aside from the schedule being different, I'm sure there are other components in there that you feel like are being lost or removed, or at the very least downgraded in terms of importance.
We're talking so much about the schedule change in the context of American sports, but I think you have to recognize when MLS makes this decision, that's not the comparison it wants to beg. It wants to compare itself to other soccer leagues around the world, right? This is not a decision that's made because we want to get away from the tail end of the NFL regular season and the start of bowl season with our MLS Cup, right? That's not why they're doing this. It's mostly transfer guided. It's guided by soccer philosophy, soccer operation. It's guided by wanting to be a soccer league and treated and talked about like a soccer league. And MLS has been making moves toward that direction, away from its sort of like prior customs of we're an American sports league that plays soccer, and we're using a lot of the NFL's playbook to design how our competition functions. But I think that when you have it on the same cadence, where you'll watch in different time slots, obviously, because especially if you're in the United States, which I'm assuming the majority of listeners for the show will be in the United States or Canada, North America, certainly. I don't have those metrics, you guys do. But I think that it's one thing when it's here, but if you're comparing it to the rest of the world and your choices are, okay, 7 o'clock kickoff, Central is like 1 a.m. UK. Okay, so I don't really know who's really watching a ton of the Central Time Zone games, right? But let's say you do have those like 12:30 sickos and it's an East Coast game. Like, that's good. That works, but people are throwing it on like super late night hours, kind of background noise, kind of like the ships coming into the bay, and they're trying to like kind of get their brain to relax, sort of thing, right? And hearing those narrators. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it will be on the same schedule, and so this is where quality comes into play. And I'm not watching a lot of Ligue 1 right now, because there's just too much other soccer that's being played on the exact same weekends every single week. I'm going to be watching Bournemouth because I'm a fan of the club. I'm going to be watching Serie A because half the U.S. men's national team pool plays in one league now, and it's not the Bundesliga. I'm going to watch the Bundesliga because I just really like the vibes of those stadiums and the atmospheres and these things. Those fan atmospheres have also had a lot of decades to crystallize their routines. MLS fan bases have had years, 3 decades in some cases, but certainly when you look at the expansion teams, up to a decade to really crystallize their fan run of show. They are used to, okay, this is how our tailgate works. This is our march to the match. These are our songs and chants. This is our drum corps. A lot of those people who are running a lot of those things might not be able to make MLS games anymore. Those people might be teachers. They might be parents, right? Where these simple factors will make or break whether or not it matters that June and July are 2 of MLS's most popular months to schedule games, versus now every single game is in a school week, pretty much, except for like the occasional break. And I think that that's going to change how some fans can engage with this league. I think it's actually going to change how a lot of fans can engage with this league, talking with several fans. there's just that sort of, was that considered? The idea that the in-stadium experience at MLS games could radically change because so much, Joe, you talk about how the league needs stories and players can drive it. MLS has not been good at that. Historically, that's been one of the major issues of MLS, is it doesn't know how to push its own storylines. And that has been born for all to see with the Apple deal as they continue to cut down their ancillary programming and completely. And that's why this is the second change that I think is very relevant from all of this, is the Apple TV change, which is now that it's going to be getting out in front of all Apple TV Plus subscribers. It's no longer going to be nestled into the MLS Season Pass second paywall. It's now just going to be available, much like how the Premier League is available for anyone who has Peacock, right? And Apple is also getting F1, so Apple will be pushing F1 and MLS as their two main sports properties. And that's good. But at the same point, you're on the same cadence as all these other leagues. Is it going to be a priority for viewers at home who aren't in the United States to keep up with these leagues? I'm not sure. For the fan in the stands, I just like it feels like it maybe not appreciating all of the like sociological and cultural knock-on effects, maybe purely because all of the talking points have been, look how much better we'll be at transfers. And I don't think 80% of people in the stands really care about that at a minimum at an MLS game. I don't think the majority do. I think they just want to watch a fun soccer game with their family and friends. I really do.
So I think my understanding of this switch has been like, it's an inevitable switch. You're moving towards the European calendar. It allows you to have, transfer windows aligned, seasons aligned, and the like. It's a move towards standardization that is expected. And I guess, I think this ends up being a question. We'll find out. I think what I'm hearing from you, Jeff, and the reason why I lead with that is that, is there an idea that, this is a move towards standardization because people say standardization is good? People like Taylor Swift because people seem to like Taylor Swift, and then it kind of keeps growing. Is this in the same league as everybody being named City or everybody being named United and everybody having similar color schemes? Is it a move towards doing what other leagues are doing because that's how you become a respectable league versus doing what you think works best for your league and the people that support it?
It's a bit of both, but I think it does take a lot of those customs. The difference between the, we're naming the club FC Cincinnati and we aren't considering the Cincinnati Fighting Garys or something like that. That's... One, it's a mistake.
100%.
It should be. The Montreal Foot Club is also canon at this point. But
that's true.
For the Fighting Garys, it would maybe mean something to a lot of locals. Maybe they would really love showing up for the Fighting Garys. Maybe they would be 2% bigger in the Cincinnati market if they had that. Maybe they would be 50% less relevant because then it looks like the Rumble Ponies are a punchline. It's one of these names like the Trash Pandas where it's just it's fun, whatever, but you have to be in on the joke to really get it. And that's soccer to a lot of Americans, right? You have to be in on the joke to get it. The thing is, you can't really... If the whole focus is let's get into the standard for the sport, boy, you really don't know what your product is at this point. Because I think that one of the things about MLS is that the playoffs in the fall has actually always really helped with aura preservation and mystique and kind of helping mythologize. And I'm not saying that this is going to be lost, but I think that a lot of people still will talk about the first MLS Cup in Toronto, who covered that game or who were at that game and watched it and froze in it and had that sort of experience of I'm here because of MLS, but boy, the game's worth it. And I think that you look at a lot of the playoff atmospheres and those games always get dark. And that's just the reality of having a lot of your postseason after daylight savings time, right? When you fall back, you're going to have later games, so to speak, in terms of where the sun is. And so every game's going to be a night game. And I think that MLS also had this thing, and this is where they really leaned into in 2023. Soccer looks great under floodlights. That was something that one of the league's top executives told me when I was part of a roundtable interview we did with The Athletic and Don Garber and Nelson Rodriguez and a lot of other kind of the C-suite there in 2023, or in 2024 we did it again. They love soccer at night. It's not going to look like that in May. It's one of the brightest months of the calendar. And I'm not saying that is why you shouldn't have done it, but these are the little things it's no one's really considered. MLS Cup is going to look very different moving forward. It's going to feel very different. And that has to be okay because MLS wants to have it that way. But these are the sorts of things I think that maybe you won't realize until it changes. And it's just oh, this feels really different to be in April. And suddenly I'm looking at the playoff tables.
Do you not like sunset? Is that what I'm hearing? You don't like dusk, Jeff?
I'm a big dusk guy, actually. Okay. I think that dusk is one of the best times for a nice brisk walk and the Italian custom of post-dinner walks.
That feels like a perfect note to go to break on.
Sure.
Jeff reminiscing about Italian sunsets. We'll come back with a bit more about the schedule change and TV rights and the like, and then we will look ahead to the Eastern and Western Conference semifinals back soon. Welcome back to the Total Soccer Show. We continue to talk about Major League Soccer as we do on Tuesdays, but especially on this Tuesday when we have the schedule change and the Apple TV changes, which we talked about yesterday, and we're talking about again on this segment. Joe, earlier you were talking about like MLS needs to be able to tell its own story, and I think that's a really interesting idea. And I'm wondering, this might again be a very straightforward thing, but I'm wondering if you have an idea of what do you feel like their story has been so far, and then what do you think they hope their story becomes with these types of changes?
Yeah, I'll answer that question. I don't think it's necessarily that MLS has to be able to tell its own story. I think MLS needs to just have good stories in it, right? And that's sort of what I was trying to get at is MLS needs to have interesting things happening in the league. And one way that you do that is by having great players. Because if you think about the NBA is a star-driven league. MLS is not. MLS is an environment-driven league. And there's only so much growth you can have when you're in an environment-driven league because you can only have so many environments. I know we talk about MLS expanding, which I would expect they're going to continue to do. But you can't break into being a league with a ton of cash to go and spend on a ton of players when you're completely, or 87% of MLS's revenue, as estimated by Sportico in 2024, was coming from non-national streams. Only 13% was coming from their national TV deal. That is not a way that you become a giant league, right? And if that's what we're talking about MLS wanting to do, they don't do that by continuing the status quo. So that's what I mean is you need to be able to tell stories. Having stars is what the NBA has done. That is effectively what the Premier League has done. That's what La Liga did at its heyday. You need to have the best. And it's going to be easier for MLS to get the best someday. Not now, probably not even in 5 years from now, probably in 50 years from now. It's going to be easier for MLS to have the best when they're on this calendar. So that's fundamentally what I feel. In terms of what MLS's story has been so far, I think it ties right into that. MLS's story has been we're a great local league with awesome in-game experiences where you can bring a friend and that's going to convert them to wanting to watch MLS on TV, which is great. That needs to happen for MLS too. And we built great infrastructure to attract players. We'll pay our players well. We will make sure that we're financially stable. All those things are good and enviable, even if you're at many other soccer leagues. The story that MLS has to tell is we're more than that. And that's what they haven't ever been able to do up to this point. It's been a journey for them to get to the point where they can say that they are that, where they have all those nice things. It's going to be another journey with this calendar change as probably the first step in it. It's going to be another journey to become something more.
Jeff, we haven't talked with you much about the Apple TV changes at present. Do you have thoughts on those one way or the other? Are you concerned about the shortening of the deal? Are you pleased with the removal of the paywall to the paywall? Do you feel like this ends up being a stronger thing for the league?
Taking away the paywall from the paywall, like the nesting of it, that's overdue. That's needed. Like people, the more steps and hurdles you have to keep people from watching your product, the fewer people will watch your product. Like even 5 fewer clicks helps. But I think that I like what Joe's saying about the story wanting to be better play, and that's the best stories MLS knows how to tell. I think MLS actually had an excellent story that was very different than any other American sports league and any other soccer league, really, which was just how do you get soccer to stick in America, and it was working. But the thing is, if you're flipping it now to prioritizing, this is, I promise, related to the Apple thing. If your focus now is, okay, it's going to be mostly on how do we get the best soccer talent available, how do we operate in a way that our teams can build with the most freedom to build the best roster possible. I do agree that's very important. Liga and Serie A are very good leagues, like 2 of the 5 best by any definition in the world, right? They have a lot of empty seats right now. And those are so separate conversations of what's going on in French football, what's going on in Italian football, Calcio, if you'd like, that's making it so that fans aren't going, and a lot of infrastructure and rubble stadiums. MLS has built these gorgeous stadiums here, and they seem to want to get people in the stadiums. And now the priority is let's get people watching our product on Apple. The other part of the Apple deal that changed is Apple has shortened the terms and increased the money a little bit. I think $50 million a year, something like that, which I would like. That's good. I would take an extra $50 million a year right now. But I think the trade-off is that it ends after the second season of the new format, right, Joe?
Yeah.
It's 28-29. So that's a really good time for both sides of this to check in and say, is this still working? Do you know what to do with it? I don't think Apple has done a lot of good for MLS. I think it's done a lot of good in terms of quality of broadcast, of centralizing the broadcast, these sorts of things. But I think that when you cut down on your supplemental program, it doesn't matter how good your play is. You don't have anyone telling the stories in-house right now. Not really. You have a few people, but they're being told to tell the stories in ways that are different from the ways that they tell them best and that they used to tell them, right? And if you look at some people who've been there since before the Apple deal, they're getting kind of shoved into different roles than what they were flourishing in before. And so I think that there actually is a little bit less of a priority of getting those stories out there. And I think that they're hoping the play will stand on its own legs and get people to pay attention. And that's been... a lot of it's been Lionel Messi, right? We've seen it. But, I think that you do have fewer hurdles, but what is going to change is they're going to need to find a way to make this interesting, and they're going to need to find a way to actually make this compelling product. I don't think people really talk about CBS's Champions League broadcast as much as their studio shows. People don't really talk. The thing that really got people to love NBC's production was that they were the first to have a really good studio feel with Rebecca Lowe hosting and the Robbies, and they've had different people come and go over the years with that. Apple doesn't have that right now, and until they have that, right now MLS is content for them. It's live event content that they want people to park on the couch, watch for 4 hours, leave, not have to think about till next Saturday. They're doing a really good job of minimizing just how vital MLS feels. And I think actually if one side is going to look and say maybe having the deal end a few years earlier could be good for us to keep our options open, MLS should want that. Because I think that MLS right now is getting kind of siloed in a way where it looks, especially now with F1 and the glamour, and so now they're going to be compared with one of the most like opulent looking entertainment forums in the world. Like, I'm very curious to see how different that package is, because if the side-by-side is like, the haves and have-nots, like, it's going to be really tough for MLS to kind of fight the subsequent perception battle.
Joe, any other additional notes on the Apple deal or anything related to it before we say we've discussed this one at length?
Nah, let's call it.
Calling it indeed. Jeff, thank you for sharing your thoughts, though, because I think we had the kind of rip-roaring back and forth yesterday where we got into like the details and the specifics, but it's nice to hear, I don't know, more emotion connected to it and more analysis from your perspective. So thank you for that. I hope you bring the same to our conference semifinal previews, including, as we talk about the Cincinnati fight in Gary's. Is that Garys or is that Garies?
YS.
That's what I thought.
YS.
Okay.
Yep.
I like it better that way, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make sure I had that right. Okay, let's talk about the fight in Gary's, FC Cincinnati versus Inter Miami. Is this, okay, of the 4 games we're going to talk about, which one are you all individually each most excited for whatever reason?
Ooh.
Vancouver LAFC for me.
Okay.
Great choice. Probably this one for me, although
That's my other pick.
I am juiced for all of these games.
Okay. Let's go with the one that Joe is most excited about, even if he's juiced for all of them.
Because it's already first in the running order. That's why. Listen, that's why. Well, Taylor's not playing favorites. That's just why.
I mean, things could be two things. I think for me, this is one where it's obviously the names, specifically for Inter Miami, also for Cincinnati, because Brenner's been very fun, and it's cool to see him back and having made amends and being friendly with a team where he did not want to be. But I also am really interested in how this game plays out in a number of different ways, because we saw, Joe, Miami, it felt like, figure out how to handle Nashville's back three and how to kind of have successful pressing and successful pressing triggers at that, and caused a lot of problems. But as we talked about, that's without Luis Suarez in the lineup. You throw him back in, I wonder how much they're going to take away from that Nashville series versus how much they're going to go back to Suarez and Messi are there. Let's just get the ball to them and let them cook.
Yeah, Suarez being back is a little bit of a wrinkle. I do think that Miami even pressed fairly well with Suarez on the field in that series. I think they probably pressed a little bit better without him, because that only makes sense.
Because
and they were really good in that game 3
yeah.
without him. Yeah, because he has one leg. Yeah, exactly. I think the defensive setup for Miami is going to be fascinating, because they're playing on the road. And it was, I think, definitional to how they took down Nashville, where suddenly Miami looked like they cared. And Messi was pressing, and Suarez even went before he kicked Andy Najar in the groin, was like moving and seemed to care a little bit. And all those things came together for a Miami team that knew they had to turn it on at the right time. Miami obviously have a quality advantage on the ball. They are one of the league's best ever attacking teams when they have the ball. I mean, they're filthy good. they have the advantage in possession in this game, even away from home, especially without a fully fit Matt Miazga on the other side. And that advantage, that possession advantage, may well decide the game, and none of the rest of this stuff I'm about to say may matter. But I am curious, Taylor, where you sort of led me here with some of the Suarez stuff and some of the defensive stuff. I am curious how they match up defensively when Cincinnati have the ball. And I'm wondering if Javier Mascherano is going to continue to use that man-oriented press that he used against Nashville. We're in game 2 of that series for Nashville. B.J. Callahan had to change his attacking structure. He shifted to a 3-2-5, and that more closely mirrors what Cincinnati build in. They build in a back three. They build with 2 center mids. They build with Evander kind of floating as the 10, the wingbacks high-ish, and then 2 strikers. Are Miami going to press them in the same way? Are they going to use Suarez and Messi and Allende to press man-to-man against the back three? Will Cincinnati just play over that press in a way that Nashville didn't? How did they mark Evander? Because Evander is sort of the big wrinkle in the shape difference between what Nashville built in with more of a flat front line compared to what Cincinnati do, where Evander is really a 10 who likes to roam and can disrupt your structure a little bit. I think that's going to be really, really interesting to watch in this game. That's probably the thing other than Miami just dazzling on the ball or making a wild mistake that completely ruins their chances to win this game, and both of those things are on the table. If it's a normal game, if it's a normal-ish kind of looking game,
with Miami in 25,
yeah, maybe not. We did have Cincinnati already sort of with the edge in this series. They've got a win and a draw, but we did get a draw between these two teams. So a normal game is possible on this season. If it's a normal game, how Miami press Cincinnati away from home, I think is going to be the thing to watch.
Flip side there, what's the easiest way to hurt Miami, and is Cincinnati's attack positioned well to be able to do that?
I think that they are.
Jeff,
I'll take it this time. I think that they're more dynamic than they were most of the season because of the Brenner factor and because they worked him in. Like Lugo Arellano can kind of come off the bench sometimes now and add something more dynamic from there rather than being a starter. And now you know what their left side of the field's trying to do. Keep in mind, Miami was only held scoreless 5 times in the regular season and in the first round by Nashville, 37 games. We're not counting Leagues Cup, Club World Cup, whatever. They were held scoreless 5 times in MLS. Cincinnati's the only team who did it twice. And I was looking over the numbers of like how did Cincinnati do this, and like as Joe mentioned, they also won one of those games and then they tied the other one of those. You can guess the score line of the tie. What happened actually was very normal, and I think that that's something that actually made me feel even more confident that Cincinnati can do this and should feel confident that they can be the favorite at home in this sort of matchup. Is that it wasn't a squirrely game. Like yes. Miami had like I think 20 and 28% shot accuracy in those games, so you'd expect those will be higher in this game for sure. And granted, they were rotating a lot because these both happened within a 10-day span in July, and so Miami is just coming off the Club World Cup. They're in the midst of the League Cup. Like, who has the time anymore, right? I get it, but I think that for Cincy, they just need to treat it the same way and just say it's another opponent and we're going to do our thing. And throughout the last 2.5 years, those have been the teams that have done best against Miami, or the teams who are like, yeah, well, we know what to do too, and we're more of a coherent team than these guys, so let's play team soccer. And Cincinnati's really good at team soccer to scale. They have some issues. They have some fundamental issues in midfield that does often keep them from doing it as consistently as they'd like. And that was something we talked about a lot, Joe, when we were coming into the first round against Columbus, was kind of like, how important will the interim room be? Well, it wasn't that important in the Columbus series. It was in one game, right? And then in the other ones, it was like Cincinnati has the talent. Cincinnati has the talent now. I think Evander is a more natural, dynamic, unpredictable sort of playmaker than Lucho Acosta was last year. I think that Kevin Denke is a much better center forward for like 2025 than I would like. I'd take him over Luis Suarez 10 times out of 10 at this point, right? So I think that there's also just the game model can flow through a more ideal modern striker. Cincinnati just kind of needs to not forget that they can, like, this is a big game for them. This is a massive game for them. They haven't made an MLS Cup yet. They've won a Supporters Shield, so like the focus will be getting to the Cup. They'll see the bracket. They'll like their chances against Philly or New York City. They just need to get the ball to Evander and Denke and let them cook, really.
The Evander note is a good one. The other thing to watch in this game, I think Miami's defensive structure and how they press Cincinnati is one thing I'm watching for. If Miami just take over the game on the ball or make a catastrophic mistake, one of those extremes, that's something to watch for. And then the other thing is set pieces. For Cincinnati, Miami can be vulnerable defensively on set pieces. They haven't been terrible this year, but Rocco Rios Novo is maybe good for a blunder here and there. We saw that earlier in the postseason already. And Evander is the only player in MLS to record more set piece goals than Messi this year. He's got 3, Messi's got 2. That's according to American Soccer Analysis. If you give Evander a set piece opportunity, if you're Miami, you are all of a sudden allowing your season's life to be cradled in the hands of one of the league's best players. So the set pieces stuff is absolutely something to watch.
All right, I'm going to ask for a very specific prediction on the fly from both of you, but it can be about anything. It could be scoreline. It could be about who wins. It could be about who gets a yellow. It could be that there will be a set piece goal, Joe. It could be whatever you want it to be. Most fouled player, player most likely to have somebody run on and try to hug them in the middle of the game.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
okay.
That would be messy.
Thank you for vamping. I am ready if you would like.
Go ahead, Joe.
I did appreciate you allowing me a buffer. I think I disagree with Jeff's Denke Suarez thing, and I think I kind of disagree with the whole "are Miami better without Suarez on the field" thing. They might be thing. I think we've been a bit too harsh on Luis Suarez on this show, so I'm going to say Luis Suarez scores a goal, and that I would happily take him as a striker on my team. Not that anyone asked.
Biting thoughts there from Joe. Jeff, for you.
Yeah, that was tense for a second to scale. This game will finish with 21 players on the field.
Oh, nice.
That's my prediction.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's so good. Since he got a red card and Miami have Suarez, so that feels.
Yeah.
I mean, let's make it 20. Well, we're at it. Let's double down and make it 20.
One of them exhausts all their substitutes, and then somebody gets injured. Could go that way. So you never know.
Good point. Good
Jeff's
point. Way
left
to find
himself
that
open
other
here.
door. I like
All
it.
right. Let's do one more, then we'll go to break. Let's talk Philadelphia NYCFC. Can we spend some time, Joe, on New York and their absences? And
Man.
what does their best lineup look like in terms of formation and personnel, given those absences? Not necessarily what do you think they will do or what have they done, but what would you like to see them do given that Keaton Parks is out long term? Andres Perea obviously picked up the injury in the last round, and then Aiden O'Neill is suspended for kicking the ball at Wilfred Zaha. Don't do that either. So with those absences and against a Philly team that will kind of rip you apart through the middle if you are not solid, what should NYCFC do?
Oh, let's just finish it out and add that Alonso Martinez probably tore his ACL while he's on international duty with Costa Rica. Taylor, my genuine answer is I have no idea. I take some amount of pride in knowing a lot about Major League Soccer and trying to be very thorough and be able to answer almost any question that you toss my way. I have no clue. I really don't know what Pascal Janssen does in this game. I think of all of the games, this is the one I'm most confident in being able to predict who's going to win. I think Philadelphia are so clearly in the driver's seat in this game. Philly had been amazing in the postseason so far. They were the better team in both games in Chicago by varying degrees. And they're a really good team that is consistently underestimated by everybody around the MLS landscape that I hear. Teams, certainly pundits. It's actually wild to me.
I mean, what are you talking about, Joe? Like, in this tie, I obviously led with Philadelphia and asked you questions about them right off the bat. What do you
100%.
mean?
And we had some folks who were a little miffed at Jeff and I on Blue Sky because we didn't give Philly a whole lot of due after they swept Chicago. And my response to that was, well, Chicago basically lost that game and won it for Philly. So we talked about Chicago's collapse because that was the story of that game. But if we do zoom out on Philadelphia, they've been amazing. Now, that's not the question you asked me. So let me take a stab at least at the question you asked. It's got to be Justin Hack in midfield, and I think that's fine. I think he's a capable MLS player, not a great MLS player, but a capable one. I don't know who partners him if Pascal Janssen continues with his two-man midfield that he's rolled basically all season long. Is it Maxi Morales deep against Philly? I don't feel great about asking him to do much in that part of the field, but maybe it could be. Is it Johnny Shore? Great name, has not really been playing much for the last half of the season, and is also profile-wise not a ball winner, right? He's more of a ball player. Is it like a Thiago Martins type where you bring up a center back and put him next to Hack and tell him to go and hunt and win the ball? Maybe. Is it just a shape change altogether and it's Hack as a single pivot and Janssen decides to go all out and try to dominate possession-wise against Philadelphia and create real chances? That might be the best option. And then you look up top and it's like, well, great. Now we have not our best finisher up top to take care of business. Is it Julian Fernandez or Nico Fernandez that you move up into that role and they'll interpret that spot differently? There's no backup nine in this team, really, as it's built now. I truly, of all the lineups, and yes, this is the postseason with Vancouver in it, and they've been rotating through players because they've been so injured. Of all the lineups, this is the one that I am least sure of, and it's a bad spot to be in if you're NYCFC.
Jeff, since Joe decided to, of his own fruition and of his own accord, just discuss New York, why don't you spend some time talking about Philly and why they're good and what you expect from this game?
Yeah, I think a lot of this has been known, and that's part of why I think that we talk about Philly a little bit less, is because their identity has been better crystallized in a very quick manner, I will say, than a lot of MLS teams. I think this was a squad that was asking for a coach to come in with Bradley Carnell's mentality for a bit, not because they didn't like what Jim Curtin was cooking, but I think that they that phase of the project got to MLS Cup 22, lost in heartbreaking fashion. It was time for a reinvention. We're seeing the reinvention this year. You're seeing more youth come up. It's very unfortunate that Quinn Sullivan's injured as well in this one, because I think that a Sullivan and Alonso Martinez included version of this game is just a lot more entertaining for neutrals. But I don't think that Philadelphia is really going to sweat it, because I think that Philadelphia knows what they're about. They're going to cede some possession, but not like a radical amount, not as much as a team that we'll talk about in the third segment of this. They will generate their chances. They will look to operate on the break. They will look to force you into making clumsy mistakes, and they will look at an opponent like New York City that has so little continuity with its lineup and so few built relationships that have been forged over the course of an entire season, given all of the injuries and absences, and look and say, this is a game that is begging for us to wreak havoc, and we are a team that is very good at that. I'm not saying that that's ugly. I'm saying that that's proactive, and I think that that's really good. And I think that sometimes, like, when I talk about, like, you know, energy drink soccer only works so far, right? It's not because it's, like, gross and ugly and whatever. I have Red Bull in the fridge right now. The thing is, sugar-free. Don't worry. I'm not.
I was worried. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem. The thing is, like, it's effective. And it works for a reason. And teams are still using this ideology for a reason. I think the thing is, usually in the playoffs, you run up against opponents that will have structures that are built to pick apart that sort of frenetic not anti-possession, but like off-ball prioritization of the tactic. And I think that right now, New York City's not built for that. Like, I think that this should be a game where Philadelphia should look to play with freedom. I think that this could be a better matchup for them than Chicago, and I think this could be a really important matchup for them to sort of figure out how they want to prepare for Cincinnati and Miami. And I'm not saying look ahead in the schedule and thanks for showing up, New York City, but I think that there's a chance to do something really useful here and be able to enable them in a way that Cincinnati had to do in the last round, getting past Columbus in the third game. Right, is set yourself up for the next one, and now you don't have as much of a break. I think that Philadelphia is in a really good position to figure out. You saw a kind of rotating cast of goal scorers in that first series, right? When you think about like Indiana Vasilev and Milan Olowski scoring in the opening game or whatever, like, who is going to be that player who's kind of in form going into the playoffs? Who can you trust? Who do you count on in penalty shootouts? These sorts of things. Like, I think that you're going to be able to figure out who wants to be the headliner of this postseason in this game. I think it's a good opportunity for someone to wrestle that spotlight.
All right. I'm going to need specific predictions or just general predictions if you both just want to go Philly with a win here.
I think this game will be done in 90 minutes.
Okay.
I think Philadelphia will win this game by at least 2 goals.
We're saying the same thing.
Fair enough.
Well, on that note, we're going to take a break. We'll come back to close out the show, talk about the Western Conference semifinals. Thank you both for your predictions thus far. I look forward to more. Welcome back to the Total Soccer Show. To the West we go. Westward bound, all of those types of things. Jeff, let's talk about the game that you are most excited for, that you have the most enthusiasm for. I do believe you said it was Vancouver LAFC.
That's right.
Tell us why.
When the bracket dropped and I was filling it out, this was the one that I did a miserly rub of the hands in front of me and said that if this comes through, we are blessed. And we are blessed. I think this is the game of the postseason. I think that this is the matchup that since July I've desperately wanted. Did you know that these two teams haven't faced since they signed Sung Hyung-min and Thomas Muller? That both of their matchups in the regular season came before the end of June? Like, we have 2 performances you could look at from, I think it's like May and June, and I think that one was a draw, one was a Vancouver win. They're so different now. And it's not just like the tactic is different because they have different forwards in their 30s, but it's just like the vibes around the team. These are probably 2 of the most positive vibe teams that we've had since the League's Cup, let's say. So if you remember 2 months ago when we were just putting a bow on the regular season, these were 2 teams that were like, you can't look away from them, because like whether it was the Bouanga and Sun kind of 2-headed monster wrecking havoc across any Western Conference defense, or Thomas Muller sort of like reminding the Vancouver Whitecaps that they are more than a cup run, just phenomenal. And I think that right now you're going to have a game where you have 2 teams that are going to be very proactive. They're going to be decisive. They're going to be using the chances. They're not going to be terribly wasteful with them. You also have the subplot where now every game could be Steve Cherundolo's last game. And yes, that was technically true in the last round, but I think that now you have to be mindful that he announced his choreographed departure in May with the idea that it wouldn't be a subplot. But this is where you kind of can't avoid it. And is this going to be the final boss for him, or is this the boss before the boss that makes sure that you're ready? And sometimes the boss before the boss is actually a little harder than the boss itself if you play a good game. I'm very excited to see how this game. I think that this is going to be a massive game for Sebastian Berhalter, by the way. Joe, maybe you want to, I don't know where you're going with your points, to be fair. I'm not trying to prescribe that to you. But, I think that it could be a game where the midfield does have a big role to play in kind of determining who actually gets to set the tempo of proceedings and who's going to be more comfortable in this game.
Yeah, I am interested in the midfield. I'm also interested in how Cherundolo is going to set up his midfield, right? Is it going to be a 3-4-3? Is it going to be a 3-5-2? What does Cherundolo try to do? I would lean towards it being more of a 3-5-2 to get an extra number in midfield, knowing that Vancouver like to build in their 3-2-5 structure. You maybe get one more body in there, and that's a better matchup. Or I suppose you could go 3-4-3 and go more man-oriented, right? So I don't know exactly what Cherundolo is going to do. I would imagine that he's going to set up his team in a mid-block and going to do the same things that we've come to expect.
That sounds like Steve.
I think this is the game that I have the least idea of how it's going to go when it comes to actually who's going to win this game. I think in my bracket I picked LAFC going all the way to MLS Cup, so I suppose deep down I will stick with that. Vancouver are a great team, man. They're a really, really, really good team, and they're going to be healthier now than they were when they last played a game 18 years ago. Brian White, I believe, should be back and fit. I think Daniel Rios should probably be pretty close to fit from what it sounded like in Vancouver. Gauld, you'd have to imagine, is closer to healthy now than he was when he played last, coming off the bench. He's probably, Sorensen got more center back options besides Ralph Priso and Halbuni. Laborda was back and able to play earlier in this series, of course. Is he going to be back in the lineup? Is it going to be Pupe, who they brought in the summer window, who was on the bench to close out their round one series? There are options now for Sorensen. So I don't know exactly what his lineup's going to look like, but I know that this is a good Vancouver team, and it's a better Vancouver team now than it's probably been at any other point this year. The thing that I can't shake, and the reason why I end up going with LAFC, is Son has been unbelievably good. Yeah. Unbelievably good. And LAFC will have chances to attack in transition. How they attack in transition against Vancouver's counterpress, which is a really drilled phase of play for Jesper Sorensen, I think is the matchup to watch in this game. How LAFC counter, do they have opportunities to break actually into the final third, or do Vancouver snuff those things out before they develop? I don't think they can snuff out all of them. I think Son is too good for that, and that's not even to mention Bouanga. I think LAFC, just have a little bit more top-end talent. And when a lot of things look pretty dead even between these teams, that is what is pushing me in their direction.
All right. Do we have specific predictions for either team or for this game in general? Anybody?
I think we will get this is low-hanging fruit. I think we will get a counter-attacking goal from LAFC where they move the ball from winning the ball to putting it in the back of the net in less than 10 seconds.
All right. I'm going to change that to fewer than 10 seconds, but still, the point stands.
Nerd. Sorry. What? Go ahead, Jeff. You said nerd.
I think there will be. I plead the fifth. I think that there will be at least 5 goals in this game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dreams do come true.
One thing that's actually really fun to watch is since the center backs injury routine began with Vancouver, unfortunately, if you look at since mid-September, Berhalter actually has been their possession epicenter. It hasn't been one of the center backs, which is usually how it was in the first half under Jesper Sorensen. And he's taken more than, over the last 8 games in MLS, he's taken over 200 touches more than any other player on Vancouver. And, I think that actually bodes really well against LAFC. And so I give Vancouver a foothold. What I'm trying to say is I get my one-time switch because Seattle's eliminated and they were my preseason pick for MLS Cup. And this is part of why I rode with them, is that I could make a less cowardly one-time switch instead of a two-time and switch, which is more fun to have a two-time and switch. Vancouver, I think Vancouver is going to win MLS Cup. I think that this is their year. I think that they're set up in a really wonderful way, and I think it could do wonderful things for the city, which is hosting Canada twice in the group stage next year as well, and is desperate for a stadium push. So I think high-scoring game. Son's going to get his goal. Bouanga's going to get his goal. Vancouver's going to get to the conference final. I can't wait.
All right. That moves us nicely to our final game of the West, San Diego versus Minnesota. Joe, I want to start with San Diego. I have a question specifically for you. I enjoyed your breakdown of their performance for Backfield. And you outlined how Portland basically tried to press them, tried to go man for man. But when that did not work, specifically when they chose to not mark Anders Dreyer, which feels like a mistake.
Bold, certainly.
Very quickly, San Diego turned that into a goal. My question for you, is that indicative of how strong San Diego is as a team? Is that likely to happen? If you have that sequence 10 out of 10 times, or 10 times, that would be the better way to put it. How often are San Diego turning that into the goal that they turned it into? Obviously once out of 10 at least, because they did it. But I think I'm left trying to figure out how strong that team is, how good they are, that if you give them just that tiny little opening, are they going to take it every time?
Yeah, I think they break into the final third 9 times out of 10. I think they get a shot 6 times out of 10, and they score a goal 2 times out of 10, which is like a really high ratio. You know, we're talking about a build-up sequence where you're building through a press. To be able to get that level of chance that often in the other side of the field is really difficult. San Diego are the best at it. They're the best at it in MLS right now. And I think Minnesota will not do that in this game. I think teams know that the way to get at San Diego is by sitting deep, frustrating them, and by attacking on the break and hitting on set pieces. When you look at the numbers, according to ASA, San Diego ranked 16th in MLS, so bottom half team in XG allowed on fast breaks and dead balls combined. So fast breaks and set pieces. That is the recipe for beating San Diego. Now, Phil Neville got high on his own supply after the press did work in game 2. Yeah. And, I mean...
When in Portland.
It's hard to blame him, man. I don't know. I saw a lot of people saying I was too nice about Phil Neville, which that's the first time that's ever been said.
I was going to say, that's new. That's new.
I know we had some Timbers fans in Discord who wanted me to go in harder on Phil Neville. It worked in game 2. Like, it did work. And Tyler Heaps was right. It probably was a bit suicidal to go and do it again. But they got burned. Minnesota aren't going to do that. They might press a little bit in this game. They did it a little bit in Seattle in game 3. Or game 2, excuse me. It's possible that we see some of that, but it's going to be a very different challenge for San Diego in this kind of game. I think the fundamental question in this match, frankly, is can San Diego, as the team playing at home, as the protagonist with the ball, can they avoid losing the ball in bad spots where they're going to have to commit fouls because set pieces are a no-no for San Diego against anybody to give up, let alone Minnesota, who are elite in that phase, as we know. Can they avoid losing the ball in bad spots where they're going to commit fouls or where they're going to get countered? That, I think, if San Diego take care of the ball in this game, they're going to find their chances. If they don't, they're going to be in some trouble. Honestly, I think it is that simple.
Jeff, does that vibe with your understanding of San Diego? And if so, what else can Minnesota do to cause problems? As I noted, Minnesota stan and lover and lifelong fan.
That's right. Yeah. Actually, I was the model that the crest was based off of.
You are the balloon.
We are that synonymous.
Dude.
Yeah. You haven't.
Wow.
I never show you my back on these podcast episodes,
Good
and that's
point.
why. Yeah, that's where the money is. Look, I mean, like, we do actually have a very credible sort of sample of one game that we can look at, where in September, Minnesota went to San Diego when both teams were in pretty similar levels of fitness, I would say. And Minnesota scored 3 goals. They were up 3-0. They gave up a really stupid goal in the 5th minute of stoppage time, but it just kind of makes the scoreline look a little more competitive than the game was. And they did exactly what Joe said, which was sit deep, let San Diego make their own mistakes, feast on them. What you then found was 2 games later, San Diego hosted San Jose, a much worse team, a much worse organized team, a much worse defensive team, a team that didn't make the playoffs, a team that didn't remember to pick up the contract option on Christian Espinoza. We're not going to get to talk about that if I don't say this now.
We have to.
Dude. Oh, man. Yeah, next week. You're right. Next week. On track. I think that when you look at Minnesota here, they're going to love what the matchup can give them, because what San Jose exposed was they did a very similar approach with like a less structure to it, less commitment to the bit maybe, and they won 1-0 in San Diego. And I think that one of the things with that one is we found that San Diego is not a volume shooting team. The more that you make San Diego try to take chances, the less likely they are to curate the chances that they want. Definitely. You can't set up 28 golden looks, but they took 28 shots against Minnesota in September and struggled to score until the final one. And I think that part of it is you're limiting their ability to do what they want to do, which is to create those big chances, which is to get them in transition, which is to get Andres Dreyer over the back and whatever and get him kind of dribbling into space. You also have no idea what Chucky Lozano is going to be once again, this time more so due to injury than his head. But I think that you look at San Diego here and they, again, are a team with a very crystallized identity, and they are a team that knows what they're going to want to do. And it plays directly into Minnesota's hand in a way that Seattle didn't in the previous round. Seattle was the toughest matchup besides maybe Vancouver and LAFC. But Seattle was a really tough test for Minnesota, and they really struggled with it, and they got past it, and they are back to the stage they were last year, and the confidence that's coming out of that locker room, after that third game, one of the highest I've ever seen it since the club, since I started covering them in 2015. Just really riding their optimism, riding their luck too. You have to say, like, they gave up 2 really bad goals against Seattle. So this isn't a game where it's like Minnesota's going to walk in and they're going to walk out of it. I think it's going to be a very close 120-plus minute game. Might need penalties. But if it needs penalties, you've got the X factor. We talked about it in the last episode. Like, I think having Dane St. Clair is something that gives Minnesota even more confidence.
What will Dane St. Clair be angry about if we go to penalties this time?
I think it will be that they're too close to the wrong American border, and he is going to want to wrestle San Diego up to Canada in the only way he knows how, which
100%.
is
And then my big piece of advice for Minnesota in this game is if a ball comes into your foot, kick it. And don't just kind of whiff it and fail to make contact and let the other team just tap it in. That's,
Who
am I? No expert.
And speaking, well, I mean, like, and to be fair, it's not like they try to kick the ball terribly often, right? But I think that when you have, along those lines, how fit is Kelvin Yeboah, the one striker on this roster? He only played 70 minutes in the third game. He's had 2 weeks to recover. If you need him for 120 plus penalties, that's still quite a stretch compared to, he hasn't played a full 90 since, I think, pretty much this game against San Diego in September. So that will be very complicating. Do you start him? Do you just bring him on as a choreographed halftime sub? Who knows?
Specific predictions for this one before we get out of here?
I'm ready. Mine is, and Jeff mentioned Chucky Lozano's injury. He came off before halftime in Mexico's game against Uruguay. He's dealing with a leg injury. I'll be really surprised if he plays in this game. So my VSP on the back of that is Amal Pellegrino will have the most XG of any player in this game. Pellegrino's going to play on the left. You have to imagine. He's been really good in that role because he's a good player. And the undercurrent of that prediction is I don't really think San Diego are going to miss Lozano a whole lot because they haven't missed him a whole lot. They've won 3 of the 4 games without him in the starting 11 since he was suspended internally following an outburst against the Houston Dynamo in the locker room at halftime. I think they're going to be okay, and I think they're probably going to win this game too.
Of either team, right? You said
like he will be the game leader in XG.
Beautiful. Jeff?
I like that prediction a lot. As I still try to think of a prediction for this one. Keep in mind there's a suspension for Minnesota as well. Joseph Rosales has been starting at left wing back. He plays as kind of another midfielder. He got a red card, really stupid red card. The team flows better with Nick Markanich on it. He also is their leading goal scorer, which is hilarious because most of them are just him hitting the second ball on a corner kick. But it's a good skill if you have it. My specific prediction is going to be that Minnesota retains over 33% of possession.
Nice. I like it.
Why do you like that?
Well, I think it gets at how Minnesota want to play and how they're going to be forced to play in this game and the tension between them and San Diego. They may need to have a little bit of the ball to get back into this game in a sense, which I think could prevent them from dipping down into, say, the high 20s in possession, which I don't think is totally crazy. So I think that gets in a good spot.
All right. Nicely done by both of you. Jeff, the spokesperson and model for Minnesota United, thank you for all of your efforts today. Very much appreciated, very much enjoyed, and I'm very much excited for these conference semifinals. Jeff Rain Morales.
Thank you. And thank you, by the way, for that first segment and letting me fulfill every white boy's fantasy of going on a podcast and them saying, what do you think? The floor is yours for an entire segment. That was...
It is a podcast. That is the way it goes. Sergio Joe Busquets, I hope you have also felt like your day has been fulfilled, your dreams have been fulfilled on this here podcast.
Every one of them. Every one of them, 100%. Thanks, Taylor.
Including having your grammar corrected by me,
Yep.
And not having to read books anymore. All the greatest dreams coming true here on the Total Soccer Show. Check us out on the Patreon. There, I plugged it. And we look forward to seeing you there, to discussing these games in more detail next week. We've got a USA game tonight. How are we feeling about that one, fellas?
You just don't want to end this show, do you?
I don't.
Just end it, man.
How much do you want to do this? We'll learn something. I think we'll learn something. That's for sure.
It's going to be great.
Joe, you said clear out. I've got 10 minutes on Uruguay.
My bad. My fault. Okay. I still haven't watched the U.S. Paraguay game, so that's on the list for later today. So there you go. That's
anything else, Joe? Arizona Cardinals, Jacoby Brissett. You want to talk about him?
Oh, dude.
Can we?
Actually, I don't even feel pain. I'm just numb. I'm numb.
Which one of you has a worse professional football team right now? Minnesota or Phoenix?
I think Minnesota because we were supposed to have hope.
There you go.
Yeah, relative to expectation, I will agree with Jeff. Skull.
Joe,
Skull.
Suns?
Suns are actually doing fine. Thank you for asking.
You're just going to keep going with it. All right. I thought I could get you even more frustrated.
Wolves need a point guard real bad, guys. Like, it's not going to flow without... Conley can't run it back one more year. It's tough. It's tough.
We've triggered my NBA reflex. All right, episode is over. Thanks, guys. Very much appreciate it. Listeners, thank you all very much. We'll talk to you very soon.